I actually it sent me because have you ever seen Iman Gadzhi's YouTube channel? You
I
heard of him?
think so.
He
Yeah,
might
I've
have been
heard of him.
around, like he's probably popped up on your algorithm heaps of times, but
Yeah,
his latest video, right to like he's trying to sell this AI stuff, right?
yeah.
In his latest video, right towards the end, he was like, "Here's like some stuff that you're gonna get," and one of the things that he'd outlined and put on the screen was SMART goals
Uh,
as like a massive part of like the project. And dude,
I
it
think,
like it annoyed me like way more than it should have. I was like, "Fuck, dude, like this is the stuff you're selling? Holy shit!"
yeah, I think I've seen a fair bit of stuff like out there, and even some of like the coaching programs and the diets and stuff. I'm just like, there's just you got to be kidding, you know?
So what did you? Because I saw a thing. It was like a snippet today, but it was like, uh, if you're training with someone who won't tailor the diet to you,
Yeah.
then you shouldn't be training with them. Or if they're trying to tailor your diet to their specific diet. So they use bodybuilding as a classic example. Where it
Oh,
was
for
like, oh,
sure.
this guy's a bodybuilder and he's trying to get you like down to 3% body fat. And it's like, yeah, sure. Maybe don't go with them if they're going to do that to you.
Well, I think the best approach that I have with a lot of my clients is like I just pretty much like the best way to go about it is like how are they going to stick to it? So like, and I always start with like where I've been dieting and then kind of tune it back because most people come and they're just like, look, I don't think I'm going to be a bodybuilder or I'm not going to, do these crazy ass diets. I know I'm not going to stick to it. And you just kind of like, that's fine. Like the overall goal, just like most things, is to get to the point where, they're consistent. Because when you're consistent, you're gonna make changes. And then they're always like with me, oh, I've got these, these weaknesses. I've got, these kind of things. There's these foods that I kind of utilize. And I'm like, that's perfect. I was like, we'll utilize them in a way that's going to benefit us. And most people just think when they come and they diet, they're just like, you're going to have to cut these things out. And you'll see a lot of like dieting and coaches online where they're like, oh, yeah, I'll still make you lose weight and you'll still be able to have the foods that you enjoy. But instead of that, we're taking it to the next level and pretty much being like, I'm going to utilize those foods to get what I want to speed up metabolism. So we might have a phase where you do a couple of days on a low carb kind of thing or a low fat kind of thing, and then we're going to trial putting in those foods to see how your body responds to it and things like that. And I think that's where I've had the most success, and that's where people actually stick to it. So sometimes I might start off with a really broad approach, and you might have seen some of the diets that I do, but like I've kind of got like these are your dinners, do these options, and then report back to me. And so they'll be like, oh, this week, the family and the kids really wanted to have, burrito bowls or whatever, so I just did burrito bowls, and I'm like, yeah, mad. And I was like, okay, what'd you put in there? Did you put in like everything that I kind of had there? And then they might be like, oh, I added these two things. And then so I'll like reverse back, and then I'll reverse back on what they've added, and then utilize that and then be looking at like how much content they've had and how that's kind of manipulating the body from that position.
Because
And then,
you mentioned timing,
yeah,
like food timing.
yeah.
How is there a way that you can know, like just for anyone out there, right? Is it like I'm not hungry in the morning, so that's probably a natural thing for your body that you don't have to eat yet? How do
It's
you kind of
not,
run it?
yeah. I mean, the best thing in terms of timing is to know what you're doing. So, what throughout the day you're going to do. And this is kind of like where we're at is it's kind of like, okay, so when do you actually train? Because if you're hungry in the morning and you're going to train, and there's a lot of people that go off, fasting before training and stuff like that. It depends what you're training for. I mean, sometimes fasting before training is great, but a lot of the times fasting before training, if you're trying to put on muscle, that's not good at all.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Especially if you're waking up in the morning and you're going off, you haven't had food intake for 10 to 12 hours, and then you're going to go to the gym and try and produce the maximum output. You're never going to be able to produce maximum output. No way. But if you're potentially going to go and then do some cardio and look at doing a certain amount of fasted cardio, fantastic. But also, is someone coming to me and they're going, well, I'm going to do a marathon, I'm going to do 2 hours? Because then, if that's the case, then you're just going to start burning a ton of muscle. So you got to really look at what someone's goal is, what they're going to be doing, what their day is going to look like. Are they going to be able to get proper meals in straight after, or are they going to go straight to work? Because if that's the case, then you're going to have to get your protein intake in as well. And you're going to have to really look at when your timing of meals are. There's a lot of people that, particularly tradies is a big one.
Mm.
They'll be great in the mornings, they'll be great at night. but then throughout the day, they're just not hitting anything of what they need.
Chalky milk, sausage
Right.
roll,
Yeah,
pie.
exactly. All those kind of things. And then they go, and you look, you're plateauing, like they might be really committed to their training, really committed to, but they're plateauing because they're not really getting the food in that they need at the right time. And that's where it comes back to, is it's kind of like that's where timing is so important, and that's where you're looking at from a biochemical perspective how the food breakdown is. So how's carbs going to break down in your system, how's protein going to break down in your system, where are you looking to kind of like store your fat sources, where are you going to utilize that the most, you know and a lot of times for me, I'll try and make fats high at night time because it's a slow burner and things like that. Then I want it to burn throughout the night,
Yeah,
and then I
right.
want your fat sources to be kind of depleted by the morning. And then in an ideal world, for most of my clients, I'll get them to train in the morning, just because then they'll most likely get that extra kind of weight loss first thing in the morning, and then we can pump up protein and carb sources to get your glycogen replenished and all that kind of stuff. And then you can look at protein synthesis throughout the day, maximize that, and then maybe chuck in some fats at night time. So you get a lot of times where I'll be getting people on steaks and things like that towards the end of the day, or they might be having almonds, they might be having those kind of good fats.
Yeah, good.
Um,
I was like, you talking about good fats, all right? Like avocado and fish and.
yeah. Well, it's funny too because like so many people are like, and I think you know this too well, but everyone just thinks like as a bodybuilder, you're just eating chicken and rice and stuff all the time. But, like right now, if I go off my diet at the moment, like I'll have 2 rows of chocolate because I know that the chocolate enhances my metabolism, but I have it at night time and I
Yeah.
let those fat sources sink in. And then straight away in the morning, then I just have straight carbs. So straight carbs before I work out, and then I'll just replenish those glycogen fuels, get that maximum input that I can in my training sessions, and then really look to get protein as high as possible straight after the sessions.
Yeah, because you want to have a good workout, right? Like the morning after. So saying
Yeah.
and like 2 rows, what is like a calorie block or something like that. So it's like 2 rows of that at night time. Like don't be punching a whole block in one
No.
go and then skipping training the next morning and shit like that because that's
Yeah.
that's just a disaster.
And that's where you look at it from, because you have that with pretty much everyone. Like I don't think I've ever had a client that hasn't, broken their diet and then just kind of come back and been like, holy shit, like, what I mean, I've ruined it or I've done this. But
Well, you're all
if
human, right? As long as it's not like one thing that turns into 50 in a row.
Yeah,
It's like,
exactly. And I guess this is where the approach of, us doing the stuff together, because it goes, that's where we're looking at transferring to the mindset type stuff and being like, okay, well, why did we do that? You know what I mean? Because
mm,
like two days ago we had a phone call and you're really motivated and you're like, I'm gonna do this week's gonna be massive. I'm gonna do exactly what you told me. And then, you ring me first thing in the morning and say, like I smashed this. And that's where you're crossing over between exactly what we're trying to produce and get out there, is kind of being like, look, that's okay, but why do we do that, and what strategies do we need to put in? And sometimes that is taking away from the nutritional side of things and actually people's bad habits, and being like, there's a psychological foundation behind this that we need to kind of approach, and we need to work on, so that we can make sure that that doesn't continue to happen.
for me, it's the pattern. So it's
Yeah.
it's the repeated stuff. So like a slip up is going to happen with anything new.
Hmm.
Like your brain is designed to fall back into old habits. Like the circuitry is not designed for like let's just do all this new stuff.
Yeah.
So it's going to happen. But it's like the individualized approach of what we're doing is that's the best part of it. Is like I had
Hmm.
a slip up. Okay, that's fine. That's normal. Keep going. If they come back again, like I've had 4 slip ups. They're all the same one, and I keep getting stuck on this. It's like, all right, cool. Now we get to unpack that and figure out what's going on. That's the
Yeah.
cool part.
Yeah, and even like a prime example that I was telling you the other day, where I got a client that I've been working with, and she goes to me, look, I'm going to be honest with you, I'm going to let loose. We had these goals over December, and I told her it's the most challenging time of year. And she tells me, I'm going to let loose over Christmas. I'm going to let loose over New Year's and all that kind of stuff. And you go, that's fine. You know what I mean? Because you're setting those expectations, and we're going to manage that. instead of having these crazy goals at a time of year where you're going to be with family, you're going to be traveling, you're not going to be able to stick to a really strict diet. It's just, almost impossible unless, like you said, you're really preparing for a bodybuilding competition or something like that. And if you are, it's not going to be a fun time of year. So it's just speaking from experience.
I remember being around you during those times, and
It's just not good. And I
it's
think that
rough.
and that's that, I'll come back to obviously this client story over that period, but being there and being in those positions so many times, knowing how, crazy the diets can look like, and obviously getting to 3%, getting to 2% and stuff like that, the best way that we approach that is being like, we know what it takes to get to that point. And for most people, you don't need to do that. We know it's not healthy. We know it's for a competition. And the way that we're approaching diets is we're looking at what's the healthiest way to do it so that you can live your life, achieve your goals, and and be able to kind of stand back and look at it and be like, this isn't taking over my life, because obviously a lot of my diets, did take over my life and did change who I was as a person. And that's not what we want for a lot of people, unless, obviously that's your goal, but you're going to have some really, serious discussions before you actually approach something like that with yourself and with your coach and things like that. But yeah, the aim is obviously just to achieve those small goals, whatever they look like, and just show the foundations that can continuously be built on. And yeah, this particular client, like, it's been a very lax approach to the diet and stuff over the break, and the benders were had over Christmas, they were had over New Year's, and we did a couple of low cal days. I ramped up a lot of things in preparation for knowing that was going to happen. Know that there was going to be alcohol in there. We were strategic about the alcohol that we obviously utilized and that kind of stuff, so that you're still enjoying it, but not looking at I had 20 beers and my carb intake was a ridiculous amount that I'm never going to be able to track. And maintained weight over that period, and then lost a little bit, coming into New Year's and coming into the cycle. So instead of, for most people potentially, blowing out and looking back at the scales and being like, oh, I gained 6 kilos, and, we got to start from that position and really taking, a toll on the body, still able to have a great amount of fun, with just a couple of low cal days leading up to both. And maintain weight, and that was timing, that was intake, and that's all strategy. When I was struggling the most in my diets and when I really got into ridiculous conditioning was when I used to do really low cal days, and then I'd get to the point where I was just, absolutely ruined, and then I'd just do a massive day. And in terms of high calories, and you'll see that a lot out there in diets that potentially bodybuilding coaches and stuff put out there. But for me, I just completely was just like, I'm pumping in as many calories as I can in, and then that allowed me to then for 2 to 3 weeks just go super strict, because for me it replenished everything in my body. So then, and it actually sped up metabolism. So like I'd have like a 5,000 calorie day, and that was comparing to like 1,500 calories or whatever my regular diet was, and then I'd lose 2.5 kilos because my metabolism was craving it, and the sugars just kicked everything into gear, and just things like that. And you wouldn't see much of that out there, but when you understand timing of food and you understand each person's body and what they need and when they need it, you can still add those kind of things in there.
But even like just on that too, like I remember there was a client that I had when I had the PT business, legend. One of those people that's like fully committed to what they're doing, just 100% all in.
Yeah.
And after a little while, he tells me he's on this diet, and it was from one of the fairly well-known people at the time. And after it was about 4 days in, and he came to training one day, and he was training like shit, and he was really tired. And so what's going on, man? He goes, I don't know, I've got like serious brain fog. I'm like really irritable. And I was like, when did you last have a carbohydrate? And he was like, about 5 days ago. And I was like, go home and have some rice or like something that's half decent, right? You don't have to go home, smack chockies and lollies and whatever. He had some rice. He came back to train and he said, I've never felt so good after having carbohydrates. And I was like, yeah, your brain, that's its main energy source, man.
Yeah,
like no wonder you had brain fog and you were moody and like you need it. So
Yeah, for sure.
it's like, unless you're on the extreme end doing the bodybuilding comps and stuff, then that's a little different. But if you're general pop, you don't need to go on a zero
No.
carb diet. And especially if you're trying to hold a job, you got kids,
Hmm.
it's not a good idea.
No, and it's not achievable. Like I said,
Yeah.
like you know how disciplined I am in pretty much every aspect of my life. Like I struggled big time. I tell everyone, it's probably the hardest thing I've ever done. It was the hardest, one of the hardest things I've ever done. And, I put a lot of credit out there to people that do it all the time, because
Mm.
it's just ridiculously difficult, and how strict you have to be in your life, and I probably took it to a ridiculous extreme, but at the same time, you take that approach and you just go, I guess from a coaching perspective, you don't want people to go through that. So we've learned from those, things,
Mm.
both of us together. You've seen what I was going through, and it's like you want people to do it in the best way possible to achieve their goals and be like, okay, let's go from this position. Let's not restrict you. Let's let you, cook the meals that you want with your family. I mean, the most common one for me is I'm not going to go shopping and get a whole different grocery list for my family and then myself, and I go, that's completely understandable.
Yeah.
In this day and age, you're not gonna do two different shops when you're shopping for, your partner and then also your kids as well too. Like, it's just not gonna work. So you need to be adaptable, and that's where we're talking about really, categorize diets. What are we looking at? What fuel sources are we going to have? When are we going to have them? Okay, you might have this approach and go, all right, well, I know when the optimal timing of food should be around training and around work and around sleep and all that kind of stuff. But then they go, well, I'm, preparing for a second child, or, kids have got, lessons all the way up until 9 o'clock at night, all
Mm.
those kind of things you've got to be able to take into account to be able to get, what you're achieving. Because if you're just looking at a run of the mill kind of coaching plan, I mean, anyone can, kind of go, okay, 7:30 you eat this, 10:30 you eat this, 1:30 you eat this. And what we're really trying to set up is, anyone with any kind of goal can come to us, and with any kind of lifestyle,
But I
and
like that. Like, I feel like we also, like, because I'm a big, and I'm assuming you'd be the same. Like, I'm a big one for, if someone comes to me with a goal that I am not going to be able to help them with, I'm going to tell them.
yeah,
It's not like, it's not the cookie cutter stuff out there. It's like, yeah, buy my program and you'll achieve all this. It's like, no, no, no.
mm,
We collaborating properly.
yeah,
We're sitting down. We're running through it in depth. If I
hmm,
can't help you with that, I'm going to let you know.
hmm,
Like, that's where it's at. We want longevity out of this thing rather than
hmm,
that short term. I feel good for like 2 weeks. Then I've had a big crash. And
yeah,
now I hate the online coaching world and diets suck and I'm out. And it's
mm,
like, we don't want that.
no, no, and that's where I guess we've kind of set it up with so many, I guess, tools and experience that we've got across the field, where we feel like we can cater to most people, but then also with the expertise of, obviously, our backgrounds and our medical professions, and just being like, okay, let's be realistic. Like, what kind of goals can we achieve, and what do we kind of need to either outsource, or, potentially look to, approach it in a different way.
Well,
Um,
on the goals thing, I actually read some stuff. It was published in 2024, but it was like this massive paper on goal setting. It was like 30 pages, goal
mm,
setting and performance psychology. But process goals were like really, really effective, the
mhm.
most effective by a long way. And it's like, it's so obvious when you, like, they run all these research things and we're like, who knew, right? It's like everyone kind of knew, but it's nice to have the evidence to back it up. But it was like, if you just set the process,
Mhm,
like, it's gonna stack, it's gonna compound. So
mhm.
like, going to the gym for me is one, because I'll get, you know me, I'll get motivated for like a month. Like, I'm lifting, this is it. Like, I'm gonna hit all these numbers,
Mm,
and then it just, the motivation dwindles, and I take up swimming again or something random, right?
mm,
Been swimming
mm.
well actually lately. Heads up.
Let's go.
But the process goals, it's
Yeah.
like, just run your 8 sets,
Hmm.
right? Like, come in, you got a chest day, 8 sets. Doesn't matter the
Yeah.
exercise, just do your 8, get out.
Yeah.
That process approach to the whole thing, I'm assuming would work for a diet as well.
Well,
Like,
yeah, like diet, and obviously, we'll touch more on, strength and conditioning, well, any training, I mean, because we've got experience in so many fields there as well, too. But, like diet, 100%, like it's just more of okay, let's start with what we can do,
mm,
Like, and it might even be as simple as, you might have someone come in for a coaching call and just be like, look, I can't diet. Like, there's just absolutely no way. I've tried everything. It's just gonna, and I'll go, okay, let you send me what you eat this next week, and we'll work backwards from there. So you might have people where, and that's where I see a lot of the fails as well too with these programs, because you've got, your run of the mill program that you send out there. Yeah, sure. If you're disciplined and if you've got that mindset and you don't have so many things happening in your life, going up and down, and life's pretty consistent and there's not all these hurdles. Yeah, sure. People can stick with that and they can go their 9 to 5 and go from there. But as soon as things start going wrong and just things, it's just going to go up in the air. So it's really hard to stick to a just kind of like stationary diet from that position.
mm.
Um, but sorry.
The other thing I pointed out the other day to someone was the fluctuation in protein.
Yeah.
So like cans of tuna was the thing I was looking at, right? It was unreal. There was up to 6 grams of protein difference between the same branded can depending on the flavor that was in it.
Mm-hmm.
So it was the Serena peppercorn tuna has 20 grams of protein in the small tin.
Mm-hmm.
But one of my favorite flavors, the smoky chili one, was like 14 or something.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, what? How? Like
Yeah.
even that stuff where it's like, oh, I had a can of tuna. So like I must be hitting my. It's like no, no,
Yeah.
no. Like
Yeah.
it's there are bits there that people aren't aware of too, right?
Oh, for sure. And also another one which is worth mentioning on that point of like thing is, if you set a diet and say, I'll always break down my diets and just be like, this is, how much protein's in this meal, this is how much carbs, this is how much fat's in that. It's really important for people to know that kind of stuff and see what we're kind of working towards. And on that point as well too is just like more so we want them to learn what the structure is. We're not here to just kind of go, okay, we're going to coach you forever. Like we're not opposed to teaching people and them kind of growing and getting to the point of learning all these strategies, which is great. Like that's what we want with our clients. But also, back to what I was saying about the food is, you might get that and someone might be on, 250 grams of, protein and whatever, 380 grams of carbs. And they'll go, oh, just, I was doing this, so I just picked up everything and it matched your intake, so it's all good, right? It's not all good. It's not all good. If you want to achieve it and stuff like that, it's just not, you're not going to achieve your goals from that position. And I see that, but so much, It's not saying that you can't replace meals with other meals. That's not what I'm saying, but there is a very strategic way to approach dieting where I'm telling people to like eat certain foods for certain reasons,
Yep.
and that's where we're going off the protein, carb, fats. That's your basics. You're looking at sodium stuff. You're looking at potassium, sodium channels. You're looking at how they swivel. You're looking at people with their, magnesium levels. You're looking at all these kind of things. You're looking at vitamin intake. The difference between males and female dieting is huge, which is not, I guess, groundbreaking stuff. That's not going to
It's
surprise
good.
most
It's a good
people.
reminder though. I think every now and then is just
It is because they'll diet the same. If
yeah.
you're with your significant other, and they're on a diet with you, they'll eat the same stuff.
Yeah.
And my first phone call with either, whether it's a male or a female, is it's like, okay, well, what are you eating and why are you eating it?
We have the like my ideal outcome for everyone that joins our community is that after a certain amount of time, depending on how much they know already, after a certain amount of time, they don't have to be in there anymore.
No.
It's like
And
I want the lessons to continue. It's like
yeah,
I've got it all now. I'm out. This is good. If you need us, we'll
yeah.
be here. But otherwise, you're good to go. You
I think
graduated.
with Yeah, I think we'd love the approach of just people being in there for that backup, right?
Mm.
Is like I know what to do now. I've been taught so many things about mindset, about training, about nutrition that I've really got the strength to be the person that I want to be, and that's probably our overall goal is that we can assist people to live the best quality of life that they can. And that's coming from all, it's coming from a nutrition, it's coming from a conditioning, it's coming from a mental background, but it's feeding into their everyday life. I'm better with my kids, I'm better with my, partner, I'm better with this. It could be anything, and a lot of it's coming back to those rudimentals, because everything that we're working on in this group is your everyday kind of like, these are my everyday hassles. These
Yeah.
are my hassles that people, don't think too much about, but it really, like you said about the brain fog and things like that, like if you don't have those fundamentals set, then you're going to struggle, from day to day living, just because your diet's not good, or your mental approach isn't good, or your training's not up to scratch, or whatever. And that's going to feed into other areas of your life. We know that all too well, in our
Yeah.
profession.
Flow and
So
effect. And it
yeah.
has, I explained it. Someone asked me the other day, what's the group like? If I had to summarize the group in a sentence, and I was like, you ever had a PT or a mindset coach? And they're like, yeah. And I was like, have you ever had one that knows a shitload about what you need? And they're like, sort of. And I was like, well, now you can.
Yeah.
They're like,
Yeah.
what do you mean? And they're like, I didn't even have to say anything. They just kept asking me questions. It was like half an hour. It was awesome.
I think the most exciting thing, about it all is, putting together, both our backgrounds that we've known for quite some time, where we're filling in the blanks. Like we fill in the blanks with each other's life,
Yeah.
in what we need in those kind of areas, and just putting that expertise and just being like, just come and see what approaches we'll take and how that'll change. And yeah, I could pretty much, guarantee that they're gonna have takeouts out of it, and their life will improve as a result, in whatever goals they are. And I think that's why I'm so excited about it, is because of the amount of, change that we can make, and the amount of fun, we'll be able to have with each other, and with them as well too.
Yeah.
So
I second
that
all that.
yeah, that'll be the best. So, yeah, look, it's something where I think I've told you this, a million times. I just think that it's really cool to be able to break that space, and be able to offer that, something where there's always seems to be, I guess, a missing link. Whether you're seeing a PT, whether you're seeing a dietitian, whether you're seeing a strength coach, it doesn't matter, where we've traveled, where we've lived, all that kind of stuff. There just seems to be missing links, and we're trying to change that, and we're also doing it in an approach where it's so easily accessible. It's something where you can engage as much or as little as you would like. So there's so
Mm.
much content on there where people can just go through in their own time and be like, well, I just looked at this, draft diet program. I'm interested. I don't really know where I want to start, but it looks good, or I looked at the principles behind this. I don't understand any of it, but I'd like for you to explain it further,
I'm
you
so
know?
excited for the questions. I'm so keen.
Yeah, it just,
I'm
yeah,
keen. As just for like Q and
it's
A weeks and
cool.
stuff. That's going to be sick.
Yeah. And like I think that's a strength of for both of us, like is our education, like how surprising it is where I don't know about you, but like even with the nutrition and the strength and conditioning type stuff for me, like I found, I was surprised by how, many people like didn't really understand those fundamentals, like I just figured it was more of a kind of like a, like a general knowledge kind of thing, like, but then I guess you see those blanks out there, and then, I thought about it a bit further, and I was like, obviously, like that kind of stuff isn't really, it's not explained in great detail. I mean, how long were we growing up being like they're telling us that, eat your greens and you'll be, as strong
Like
as you like and
Popeye.
all that. Yeah, exactly. Like, and that's still to this day. Whenever I tell people about diets and stuff like that, they're like, oh, like veggies, all this kind of stuff. And I'm like, well, yeah, sure, like vitamins and stuff like that in there. But, if you're chucking a ton of fruits in there, like your sugar intake and that kind of stuff, or you're looking at that and you're looking at your fiber intake and you're going, well, yeah, that could be the reason you're bloating, or that could be the reason this is happening. Like all those kind of things where people don't understand. And it's just like, oh, I have vegetables 4 times a day and I'm still sick every 2 weeks. And I'm just like, yeah, that's outdated. Like, I'm sorry, but it is, So, whereas me, like I don't more much to the fact that I'm a bit allergic to a lot of veggies, but I'm not a big veggie eater. But I obviously do supplement for that kind of stuff. But I'm rarely if I get sick, it's rare.
Mm.
And so, like, and a lot of people always say that they're just like, how do you bounce back within a day or so of getting sick? And I really do, like, honestly, come back to, my diet and obviously the strength and conditioning training and stuff like that has been my fundamentals, you
And your
know?
mindset, lad. That's your mindset.
Well, yeah, that too. So,
I just
I
stop
mean,
being sick and be awesome instead.
yeah,
Back to you,
well,
lad.
that's your area expertise. Like, I'm definitely not going to blow my own horn in that respect, but yeah, look, and those are the kind of things where even just a discussion like this, like where you're crossing off, how many different aspects of life
Mm.
can we improve for people, and coming back to even males and females and dieting and stuff like that, like it just you can tell them, oh, like they've been struggling with the potentially with the hormones. Females is a big one, and something that, like, a lot of the times they, for good reasons, don't really want to chat about at the beginning. But when you get them opening up, you're just like, well, no wonder. You know
Well,
what I
it's
mean?
like it's
Like,
funny because it's like just it's a normal thing. It's like one of
yeah,
the first
100%.
questions I'll ask. Like, if it's fine,
Yeah,
maybe you need to eat a steak. Like,
yeah, and it's important to know that as a coach. You know what I
mm,
mean? Like, it's not, fair enough if you want to be a bit more subtle about the way that you approach it, and just be like, oh, it's my
like a
time of the
bull in a
month.
china shop like me and just crash your way
Yeah,
through it.
exactly. And you'll get clients that'll just walk in the door and tell you, I'm having a bad day, I'm on my period. So,
Yeah, yeah.
you just got every end of the spectrum, but those things are crucial, like crucial in terms of, like, I'll do high days, like I'll do high carb days. I'll carb them up. I don't know from a metabolic perspective what they're going through, but can understand, exactly what it's doing to their body,
Mm.
and from that perspective, then I can, utilize different foods to kind of replenish and make them feel a bit better during, a tough time. And then look to cycle off that, as the menstrual cycle ceases. So,
Well,
um,
let's get a maybe we'll in the group we'll chuck a little preview on some of these discussions that are going to be had over the next little while,
yeah,
and we'll
I
get maybe a little vote and see who wants to go first on a certain topic.
Yeah, it'll be cool, eh? It'll be really cool.
Yeah.
I want to get a very good outline about exactly, which areas of everything that we can offer, what areas it's going to touch on, and how that it can improve people's life. Utilize that as topics, and the other thing that we were talking about is do a 12-hour kind of cycle, so a 12-hour day cycle of what looks like if you've got someone that's training in the morning, if you've got someone that's training in the afternoon, if you've got
Mm.
someone that's doing swimming, if you got someone that's doing running, whatever that may be, and then looking at the in-depth approach to what a diet and what a training program would look like for those kind of things, and break that down on a kind of hourly basis, because that's something that, yeah, look, yeah, I'm not going to say you won't see out there, but I'll be impressed if someone can find that for me and show me it, because I definitely haven't seen it. So, yeah, I'd be really like very interested to see how people react to that kind of stuff, and can look on an hourly basis about the different foods and how that's going to
Mm.
affect their mood, how that's going to affect their approach to different situations, how that's going to affect their meetings, at work,
Yep.
all those kind of things, is going to be massive. And we, once again, I'm not going to toot our horn, but we definitely got the skill set to be able to provide that and provide that knowledge, which I hope people will love. We
Yeah. So we
really
just we need
respond.
more of you to get on board.
Yeah,
So click the link in the
100%.
bio.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Click and subscribe and stuff like that. Um, yeah, it's going to be cool. There's going to be so much out there, for people to see, and it's going to be at a ridiculously cheap price. For how much that we're kind of providing. And like we said, there's so many different avenues. Like, if you just prefer to just be in a group and just kind of just see what's out there and just take on whatever content we produce from a weekly, daily basis, go ahead. Go ahead. Just, yeah, get in there, get into the group and just subscribe. But if you want that one-on-one approach, or you want that two-on-one approach, and you want to see what we've got there, then we've got obviously the packages that kind of go all the way up to the top. And yeah, we're kind of happy to just kind of take what people want and kind of provide them with what they need, I guess.
I'll chuck the current packages up on Insta actually, and
Yeah,
so they'll
yeah,
be up there if anyone wants to have a look. But
yeah,
yeah, done
and
deal.
we'll,
The
and we'll
king.
also The king, we're getting there. But you got to provide me with more about this your approach, the mindset approach as well too. I want to see your take on it all as well too.
Don't worry, lad. We'll get there.
Okay.